Well, we are diving into the trenches here, folks, because not only are we seeing commentary made on the newest Montreal Canadiens forward Ivan Demidov from teammates, from media, from folks all over the interwebs, folks that are at Pearson Airport or otherwise. Not only are we seeing people within the organization or people in Montreal or people who cover Montreal talking about Demidov, but we also have Ivan Demidov's mentor himself, who reveals the truth as to what Demidov is as a player and how he will make the transition to the Montreal Canadiens. Now, quick Habs notes aside, yesterday they played off against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yesterday they lost 1-0 in OT off of a chance that they probably could have won the entire game over. Yeah, Nick Suzuki had a really beautiful breakaway opportunity that he was not able to beat Anthony Stolarz on. Jakub Dobeš ended up losing 1-0 despite being perfect in regulation time, and despite the Maple Leafs heavily outshooting Montreal in the first 60 minutes of the game. So I'm not going to come to any conclusions as to how good the Canadiens are based off of that one game. I do feel like the Leafs were kind of taking their foot off the gas pedal for the majority of the contest, despite the fact that they had 30-plus shots by the end of regulation and the Habs only had, I think, half of that. But really, this game was more so Toronto just taking it easy, kinda, and Montreal not really looking all too hot themselves, but just being in the thick of it to be tied 0-0 heading into overtime. But anyways, all Montreal Canadiens game talk aside, obviously, the most important game that everybody's going to be paying attention to is the game happening tomorrow against the Chicago Blackhawks, the game that is projected to being Ivan Demidov's debut game for Montreal. Everything seems like it's going to happen tomorrow, from a potential Demidov press conference to Kent Hughes speaking out about this guy, potentially, of course. Nothing's guaranteed. But ultimately, I wanted to turn your attention to this post made on TVA Sports, published by Anthony Martineau from earlier, I think this was yesterday. Yeah, this was yesterday. Exclusive on Ivan Demidov as told by his mentor. This article is going to be linked in the description, but I want to dive into everything it reads out here because it goes over some really interesting, I don't want to say like revolutionary info, but it's just some new perspectives on Ivan Demidov from the minds of one of the guys that had allowed Demidov to grow and develop into the player that he is today. Let's take a look at this article. Ivan is a 19-year-old who is well aware of his great talent, but for him, it'll never be enough. His approach is incredible. Over the past 4 years, few people have spent more time with Ivan Demidov than Daniel Bochner. Bochner was actually on the ice when the spectacular left-hander the day he made his signing with the Habs official. Bochner, a 40-year-old Toronto native, serves as the player development coach for SKA St. Petersburg, the organization where Demidov built his steely reputation. He has also had the same position for the Carolina Hurricanes for the past 2 years. Now, to me, I see this and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what the hell? What the hell's Bochner doing leaving Carolina and joining SKA St. Petersburg? What are you, Tony D'Angelo? Like, does this happen often for people in that organization? But anyways, let's just go back onto the article here. Bochner says, everyone talks about Ivan Demidov's talent, his skills, but the aspect that impresses me the most, for my part, is his work ethic. I always came to the arena on my days off, and Ivan was, without exception, always there when I arrived. On the ice, in the gym, in the shooting gallery, in the puck handling room. He was constantly asking for extra time. People don't see that, but such a level of success is never an accident. This article then says it's enough to remind us of the work habits of a certain Lane Hutson. And I love how this article brings that up because I read that initial paragraph, Bochner talking about Demidov's work ethic, how he's consistently at the arena, he's always doing anything he can to further his game, even when he doesn't need to, he's always out there, he's always trying, he's always putting in effort. I read that and I was like, that's Lane Hutson 2.0. That's Lane Hutson, except he's Russian and he's a forward, and he's not somebody that has formed a pretty good connection with Patrik Laine just yet. Lane Hutson is setting up Laine left, right, and center for power play goals. Demidov, in Laine's eyes, is just another left-handed guy who happens to be Russian, so there's a divergence there. But ultimately, Ivan Demidov does display some of those work ethic characteristics that we have seen out of some of the best Montreal Canadiens guys like Lane Hutson, and the article does a very good job in just bringing that up, too. He wants to be the best. It was in 2021 that Bachner first met Ivan Demidov. It was during SKA training camp. He was 15 years old at the time. Even then, he didn't want to be on the ice for the sake of being on the ice. He wanted to be the best. Ivan doesn't want to be just a walk-on. And, I read this, and my initial response is, oh, well, you totally didn't do that in SKA, right? He totally wasn't a walk-on with SKA St. Petersburg when the guy was not being played much and he was getting scratched and given fourth-line minutes and he was played as a 13th forward despite leading the team in points. Right? Anyways, even though Ivan Demidov may not have wanted to have been walked on, it was very clear that Roman Rottenberg and the SKA crew did just happen to do that, and ultimately, there were some problems in the way that Demidov was deployed, but hey, it doesn't matter because SKA did everybody a solid by allowing him to leave and not join the MHL, instead join the NHL. Take a look at this and some more comments made in Demidov's development. Over the past few years, our interlocutor, I've never seen that word before, and Demidov have often found themselves alone together, especially during the long period last year when the new Canadiens number 93 was nursing an ankle injury. In 4 years, what has been the most improved aspect of the forward? Bachner's answer is as interesting as it is comprehensive. His ability to separate his upper body movements and his lower body movements, so not doing everything at once. For example, slowing his feet down by moving his hands faster in some cases, but also moving his feet more by slowing down the speed at which he controls the puck. All of this has made him, over the months, more unpredictable for his opponents. And that is a really underrated aspect to Demidov's game that we will see heading into this Monday. He worked a lot on his leg dynamics and his technique so that his skating was on par with his crazy puck control skills. Honestly, I don't believe it. Can his feet really move as quickly as his hands can? If they can, then absolutely that'd be amazing, but I guess for now we'll wait and see. Some argue there is a considerable gap between the KHL and the NHL, which is a fact. Patrik Laine is one of those guys. But that's not the only truth to consider, Bachner says. Why is he ready for the NHL? The main reason is, in my opinion, it's his great self-confidence. It's something you either have or you don't, and he has it. He is fully aware of his talent, and he has this ability to integrate into a group of talented players and still be the best of them. Ivan played with a lot of good players this year, NHL caliber guys, and he still rose to the top of SKA St. Petersburg's offensive line. I think one aspect of his game that people don't talk enough about is his ability to create space for himself in the O-zone, against opposing D-men. He has a very rough side along the boards that allows him to win many battles and extend his team's possession time in enemy territory. That's a very important element in the NHL. And when I think about puck battles, I honestly think about Kirill Kaprizov. Maybe that's recency bias because the Canucks and the Wild played yesterday and Kirill Kaprizov was winning board battles like crazy. But hey, is that not a fair, fitting relation to make just because of the Kirill Kaprizov and Demidov comparisons? Anyways, let's finish off this article here. Ivan is a possession guy, a pass-and-go guy. I think to maximize his potential, we need to pair him with guys who can also play that type of hockey. That said, we also played Ivan with a more defensive-minded center this year, and it went well. So I think if Montreal has a guy like that, and we give him another winger with good skills, that could work as well, but ultimately, I think he'll definitely need to play with at least one other offensive guy with whom we can develop chemistry. Will that be Patrik Laine? That's an interesting thought. But ultimately, I wanted you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. After reading these reports from Ivan Demidov's main mentor, what are your thoughts on how he's going to transition into the NHL, and what are your thoughts on how he is going to produce? Let me know in the comment section all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this British Astros 99. And bye.